You're welcome to Joy News Prime. Now, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have agreed to execute a document that captures the plotted maritime boundary between them in October this year. Senior Minister Yaw Osafo-Maafo says the decision reached will benefit both countries. He was speaking at the second meeting of the Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire Joint Committee on the implementation of the decision of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, ITLOS. Ifwa Evans-Chinnery reports.
Early on this year, a delegation was in Cote d'Ivoire to officially inform that country of Ghana's intention to start implementing the decision of the Special Chamber of ITLOS on the delimitation boundary between the two countries in the Atlantic Ocean. This would be done by depositing the relevant document on the issue with some agencies of the United Nations. At the second meeting of the Ghana-Cote d'Ivoire Joint Committee held in Accra, Ghana indicated that it had reviewed the chart with the plotted coordinate of the maritime boundary as provided by ITLOS, submitted by Cote d'Ivoire at their May 2018 meeting in Abidjan, and found it acceptable in principle. According to Senior Minister Yaw Osafo-Maafo, the agreement between the two sides will settle all disputes between them.
Now, based on the ITLOS decision, we have to get the boundaries properly plotted so that we know what belongs to Ghana and what belongs to Cote d'Ivoire. ITLOS had provided the coordinates, 7 of them, and we have to put the 7 coordinates of ITLOS into a chart to get the boundary delimited. That's what we did yesterday. Luckily, we've all come to the same consensus in plotting these coordinates. So now we say that we have a maritime boundary agreed upon between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire based on the ITLOS decision. That's very important. That's the guideline based on the ITLOS decision. Now, when you have drawn that line, there will be hydrocarbon resources which belong to the Ghana side. That's no problem. That will be exploited by Ghana. There will be other resources which may belong to the Cote d'Ivoire that belongs to Cote d'Ivoire. But don't forget, these hydrocarbons are liquid and gas. They may also strand the boundary. There will be some in this side and the same well, some on the other side. We want to have an agreement that when such a situation arises, we have to have a common basis for exploiting these hydrocarbon resources which straddles between both sides of the boundary for the benefit of Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire jointly.
The parties subsequently jointly plotted the 7 coordinates in accordance with the ITLOS decision and have agreed to execute a document evidencing the plotted maritime boundary at the next meeting scheduled for October 2018 in Cote d'Ivoire. Attorney General Gloria Kufu says the deal has to be exploited in a manner that will work for both countries.
These meetings really essentially are about implementing the decision of the tribunal. So what is it? The tribunal provided coordinates, that is directional points, that will enable us to identify that line in the sea that separates the waters of the two countries. So I can say definitely yes, that was put paid to when we had the decision rendered. So what we are doing now is to make sure that we put all disputes behind us as far as our boundary is concerned.
Now, government is assuring teacher unions their pension funds are safe following agitations by NAGRAT. The teachers are raising concerns their 1 billion cedi pension funds are being mishandled, insisting the funds are not being invested appropriately. At a media briefing on Friday, they threatened to call a strike unless government immediately transfers their Tier 2 pension to the GES for management in accordance with the law. They say the National Pension Regulatory Authority is committing an illegality by continually holding on to the pensions. Deputy Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Bright Rekubrobi, tells Joy News government is working with the teacher unions to amicably resolve the concerns, assuring NAGRAT it will not embark on a strike to disrupt the academic calendar.
They are not the only public sector workers. We have the judiciary, who even were part of that, the Ghana Health Service, the Clock Sack. All of these are equally bigger schemes. And as they say, DS only had a hitch, not with government. It is to do with their own trust board. They have one or two issues which they are working at. Remember, the ultimate rests on government to ensure that there is no shaky thinking around pensions. And so the board gave instructions to MPRA to hold on until all matters are resolved. We've been following this matter for quite some time, and we are sure that once they resolve the internal matters, MPRA as a regulator will have no option than to transfer their monies into their accounts. We don't even interfere in their affairs. Remember, they are independent board, and they go about their things normally, unless they have an issue which they will come to the ministry. We assume that things are going fine. From time to time, they brief the minister, and so we are well aware that things are going very well. Once they resolve their issue, their monies will be released into their account. I must put on record that they are not losing anything by way of investment, just like we did for all other public sector workers. The same thing has been done for them. The only issue is that once they resolve that we are okay and therefore you can transfer the money, then government will be very, very free and will have no qualms, keeping their monies.
Well, meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority, Hayford Attakruf, says challenges with the Board of Trustees of the teacher unions would have to be resolved first before they can get their funds.
Yes, Occupational Board operates through a Board of Trustees. And that is the structure of how pension funds are administered. They hold the fiduciary responsibilities. We are regulators. And the reason why the TPFA has had anything to do with an NPRA is historic. From 2010, when the three-tier pension scheme started, and in tier 2 collections were made, there were no corporate trustees, no schemes had been formed, GS, occupational pension scheme had not been formed, neither had any scheme at all. So the monies were lodged into a central depository at the Bank of Ghana, and it was called a temporary pension fund account, and MPRA has been looking after it on behalf of government from 2010. So it is not a coincidence that that amount of money is with NPRA. It just depends on the instructions of the Board of Trustees. Once the Board of Trustees inform NPRA that they are ready for the funds to be transferred and to the account of their custodians, the monies will be transferred.
So you are given the assurance that you are not, you don't intend holding on to the money as and when they are ready. They will definitely get it and they will
absolutely release it. Yes. And as I said, the scheme has got its management, which is the Board of Trustees. So as soon as the Board of Trustees instruct that the money should be transferred into their service providers, it will be done. Essentially, the unions need to be talking to the Board of Trustees that they are the ones who, by law, are entitled to take decisions. They are the ones who even employ the service providers.
One of their concerns is that when the money is sitting with you, it's not generating the expected interest. How do you react to those concerns?
Right. I mean, the monies are at the Central Securities Depository. They are in instruments. They are in a 1-year instrument, 2-year, 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, and 15-year instrument, and is yielding the necessary returns as any other scheme within the public sector is earning. So they are not losing out as far as investment is concerned. It's not like the money has been put into some bank account as a cash and they're losing interest on it. No, it's an investment, and any interest that accrues out of it is used in purchasing 91-day treasury bills on their behalf. So
let's stay on this a while longer because we're joined on the line by President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kabanu. Many thanks for your time, Mr. Kabanu. Hello, good evening, Mr. Kabanu. Right. Mr. Kwabenu, if you can hear me, I mean, I'm sure you must have heard the Deputy Employment Minister there. He has indicated that he met the association to amicably resolve this matter. What assurances did he give you?
Well, in our meeting, we still maintain the position that the right thing to be done is the transfer of the funds. Right. Because the board have been created for a purpose. The service providers have also been established for a purpose, and that there is a need for the transfer of the funds. Let me commend the efforts by the minister and his deputy in intervening and finding an amicable solution to the problem. But we have not finalized and taken any final decision yet. They asked of our consent, and we believe that our concerns are legitimate in the prescriptions of the law.
And Mr. Kwabenu, if you heard the MPRA boss, he mentioned the Board of Trustees. Has the issue of the appointment of the Board of Trustees come to your attention?
No, the Board of Trustees have already been appointed. They are already working. They are in place. The Board of Trustees have requested the MPRA to do a transfer of the funds to our service provider.
I see. So what's the way forward, going forward? What do you expect of the ministry as well as the MPRA to avert the threat of strike?
Simple expectation. Just follow the prescriptions of the law. That's all.
Very well. Many thanks for your time. That's President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kwabenu. You're watching Joy News Prime. And still ahead, ministers of state and other government appointees tagging along President Akufo-Addo's Ashanti region tour made to join a coach following a directive against ministers using their own vehicles in the presidential convoy. And already some of the appointees are taking it in their stride.
All people became appointees. I mean, some were riding on these VIP buses, STC buses, so it is nothing difficult for any appointee to do.
There are, however, security concerns. We would explore that after the break. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Now, it's exactly 1 year since government cut sword for the construction of the first factory under the One District, One Factory initiative. Although there has been some hitches along the line, the contractors working on the factory say it is 51% complete and that they're not behind schedule. Richard Kwejunyako paid a visit to the factory and has filed this report.
This is the first factory project under government's One District, One Factory policy. The Kumfi Fruit and Juices factory got off to a very slow start after initial funding difficulties. Joy News' visit to the construction site saw a marked improvement in the construction process.
So what's the superstructure? We finished with the what we call the substructure works. So we are now moving above the ground. So we'll be doing erection of the stanchions, the steel works, which will take probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks to be done. Then now the floor work start, then the cladding will also start. Then from there, the installation works follow.
Coordinator of the One District, One Factory project, Gifty Ohini Kunedu, who visited the site, was overwhelmed with the progress of work. She says contrary to speculation that not all districts would have a factory before their term ends in 2020, all districts would have a factory each, with many of them having more than a factory. Gifty Ohini Kunedu explains the funding difficulties have been overcome, with many banks expressing huge interest in the project.
So they are all the kind of incentives that we are giving to factories to make them thrive and also to make them a success. The factory will belong to the promoter and not government. But as government, we have to make sure that all the stumbling blocks are removed so that the factory will thrive and be there forever. This One District, One Factory is creating permanent jobs. We will complete all the factories in all the districts, even the new ones. The banks are happy because of the incentives that we are giving them. So even the banks who were not part of it already, they are coming, that they will want to be part of it. Because if you are giving a loan to somebody and somebody is absorbing 10%, it's good news.
Manager of the factory, Frederick Kobna Aqua, explains how the plantation of the factory is coming up.
Where we are is an outgrower site. We have at the moment about 15 of such sites. What you see here is for a group of only 12. All that you see here is for a group of 12. And we have this dotted throughout Ekumfi. We intend to extend beyond Ekumfi because what the factory will require will be so much. After securing the land, we come in with our machinery to do the land clearing, land preparation. We buy all the things you see, the black polythenes you see here, they are called plastic mulch. We buy for them. We buy the suckers for them. We train them, all of that. And so if you're an outgrower, all that will happen is that you'll be allocated a plot.
The Ekumfi Juices and Fruits Factory is expected to be completed and commissioned before the year ends. Richard Kwejonyakon, Joy News, Cape Coast.
Now, the typically long convoy of ministers of state that would tag along when President Akufo-Addo attends functions was trimmed significantly on his Ashanti region trip on Friday. It follows a directive which the Chief of Staff says is aimed at cutting down on public expenditure without compromising on productivity. So instead of the convoy, the ministers and other aides can hitch a ride on a ministerial bus that would be part of the convoy. The bus, which was used for the first time on Friday, has come to stay. Insure FM's Ohimi Tewia has been speaking to some of the ministers who joined the bus on the experience and what they make of the directive. Sanitation Minister designate Cecilia Abinadapa says the move is in fulfillment of the President's promise to protect the public purse.
We all brought our minds together. Initially, we were even thinking of getting means cheaper than what we are doing. But we said, okay, let's try this and see. And lo and behold, it's worked out to our amazement. We are all happy. I just tried and checked that a number of us into hundreds are saving not less than 1,000 cedis each on fuel today. So you're talking about tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, when it comes to cost savings, when it comes to fuel alone.
You said you decided to try something. What exactly are you trying here?
To see, embark on this exercise, introduce this new paradigm shift and see if we can really calculate something meaningful. And I did my financial analysis, and at the estimate, if you are considering the estimated statistics, we are saving about 100,000 a day.
The STC is a very convenient bus. And before people became appointees, I mean, some were riding on these VIP buses, STC buses, so it is nothing difficult for any appointee to do. Of course, sometimes in order to move efficiently with the president and all that, you might say that that's maybe a more convenient way, but it is not inconveniencing for any of us. We are all happy to get a job done. And once the president directs that this is how I want it to be, as part of listening to Ghanaians and what they want happen. I mean, they are the reason why we have the appointments, and we have to heed those kind of advice and suggestions.
Over the years, the president, he's been president for 1.5 years. Even during the flag bearership, we went round with him. He himself sat in a bus. You are aware of it. So it's not the first time. It's a feature, constant feature in President Akufo-Addo's government. He's taking good care of the people's purse, and he's also encouraging all of us to follow suit. So it's in order. We are very comfortable in this bus, and that's what will be the norm wherever he goes.
Yes. It won't be the first time, and this will be the last time.
The first time, it's a norm with him. It's one way, sure way of making sure we do savings.
So you heard the Sanitation Minister Cecilia Abinadapa. Earlier you heard Chief Executive of Maslok, Stephen Amwa, and Deputy Chief Executive of the Middle Belt Development Authority, Vincent Frimpong Mansum. Now, there are security concerns being raised about this particular Directive, Chief Executive of the Security Warehouse Limited, Adam Bona, does not think putting all the ministers following the president in one bus is a good idea. He joins us via Skype. Good evening to you, Mr. Bona.
Good evening, and good evening to your cherished voice.
So you must have heard the appointees there. They say this is a cost-saving measure. It's a smart idea. You don't think so. Why?
I don't think so. I think it's more a populist measure. If you listen to, I think it's the head of Master. I don't know his name. They say he's calculating and they are saving 100,000 Ghana cedis. For me, I think 100 people, appointees, ministers, and heads of agencies follow the president. 100 of them. Why would 100 of them follow? I mean, and if you look at the security implication, if this bus, should this bus run aground, what's going to? It means chances are that we are going to have hundreds of our leaders, either getting injuries to perish. Is that what we want? I've heard them from your documentary say this is a cost, saving measure. But I beg to differ in terms of security. I've never seen this before. I've only seen it in a war-torn country, maybe in Southern Sudan, or in the Congo, or in other countries where they put all visiting dignitaries in the bus, and you will have security at the back, security in front, maybe when security officers in front and at the back, and maybe even a helicopter that is flying over. They are not in a war country. Why are we putting all of them in a bus? If you yourself and your viewers remember, just about 2-3 months ago, the deputy chief of staff, his vehicle ran into a stationary vehicle and got mangled right off. You can imagine if we had all these ministers, that vehicle. So let's vary the rates. Let's not put all of them. I think it's simply, I haven't seen it before.
Now, how do you respond to those who argue that this really is a cost-saving measure and will also cut down on lack of productivity? I mean, if you do know that for such long convoys, it creates a lot of traffic and inconvenience for road traffic users. So this, for them, is the way to go, and you are saying this is not the way to go?
Well, I'm not an economist or a finance person. I'm a security person. And so safety first. For me, that's a safety first. And so I'll leave that calculation for, the others to do. But as far as I'm concerned, security in every democracy, has to be high. It has to be one of the highly rated, institutions we should have in this country. And so for me, in terms of no, it shouldn't come in. If you know what happened in Rwanda, it took the plane carrying the president and his dignitary to be brought down for the country to, begin to butcher themselves. And so for me, let's not talk about cost-saving measures and put the country into a situation that we might never be able to recover. We should be careful the way we treat when it comes to security.
Very quickly, Mr. Bona, how do you think the president should go about, trimming the cost of such travels?
I mean, we have regional ministers. We have, DCs. We have them there. They are the president's representatives. If there is supposed to be a tour, it should not be more than 10 vehicles in a convoy. But having close to 100 vehicles, it shouldn't be about 10 or 5. And then, they go there, meet the people there, and have whatever talk going to undertake. But moving them when they are supposed to be working in the various offices or conducting their own tours, so I think we shouldn't. For me, from a security point of view, this is a big no.
All right, many thanks. We'll have to leave it here. Thanks for your time. That was Chief Executive of the Security Warehouse Limited, Adam Bona there. Ohiming Teria is my colleague in the Ashanti region. He joins me via telephone to give us a wrap of day one of the president's tour. Ohiming, we do know that the president paid a courtesy call on the Asantehene and also met with some party activists. Bring us up to speed on that.
Thank you. At the Menchia Palace, the President Akufo-Addo was there as he posted to greet the Asante-Hene and also receive his blessings before he starts the 4-day working tour of the region. And it was very brief, just to say that the President also told the Asante-Hene that as part of his work to improve infrastructure, especially hotels and roads, he wants to complete the 40-year-old maternity block that has been abandoned at Confirmatory Teaching Hospital. Don't forget, this is a 996 capacity facility cater for the congestion at Confirmatory and other peripheral health facilities. And that is why a project to
unfortunately, the telephone line, the quality of the telephone line isn't too good. We do apologize for that, but that was my colleague, Ohiming Teria, with a wrap of the President's visit to the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi, today. And as you heard him, he paid a courtesy call on the Asante-Hene. He also spoke about the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital and pledged to complete the uncompleted building block at the hospital facility. He's also due to meet with party activists later today. We will bring you updates in our later bulletins. But you're watching Joy News Prime. I'm Marba Kumson. Still ahead, to tax or not to tax the church. It appears government is salivating at the thought of having a portion of the church's incomes.
Church gets itself involved in a business transaction or in business. The business is subject to tax.
Up next is business. Stay tuned.
Good evening to you. Welcome to Business on Joy News Prime. The Association of Ghana Industries says it is still committed to establishing its own bank to facilitate easy access to credit. That's an assurance from President of the Association, Dr. Yao Edu-Gyamfi. He says his outfit awaits final settlement of the current development within the banking sector. He was speaking with Joy Business at the presentation of AGI's Business Barometer report. Here's more.
The Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, says it's still committed to establishing its own bank to facilitate access to credit, especially by SMEs. Earlier, the association hinted it had initiated the process of establishing a bank to support the local industry. Dr. Yao Edu-Gyamfi, who revealed the proposed name of the bank as Ghana Industrial Bank, says his outfit has put the process on hold, awaiting the dust to settle on the current developments in the banking sector.
We have, AGI is working on feverishly in terms of establishing our own bank. What has happened lately has made us put something on the hold, waiting to see the aftermath when everything settles down. Then we were really talking about Ghana Industrial Bank. Ghana Industrial Bank, which will basically cater for the needs of the industries. And we're still ongoing, but we wait until the dust settles down before we move this up.
The Chamber of Commerce and Industry is also supportive of the Industry Bank. CEO of the Chamber, Mark Bedu-Abuaje, was of the opinion that the model has been a success in many other countries.
We're actually looking at how we can have very strong local banks. But in situations where some of the banks are struggling, and to the extent that some falsify their document to get licensing, then I think the Bank of Ghana came in at the right time. The reason is simple. A lot of businesses in Ghana, the SMEs, get their credit from these banks because some of them see the stock market as so huge for them to go there, or some of them also see the stock market as not well developed or acceptable to them. So most of them go to these banks for their credit. Even if they have funding, they also place it with this bank.
For now, many industry-specific banks have deviated from their course and are now doing general banking.
ARB Apex Bank has observed the current tax regime is stifling growth of rural and commercial banks. Managing Director Kojo Mata though acknowledges tax is essential for national development, says the 25% tax rate is enormous. Speaking at the commissioning of Akumadan Rural Bank Limited, he called for concession of these banks.
Mr. Mata believes the tax concession will enable the RCBs adequately carry out their social responsibilities.
Recently, the tax has been increased to 25%. We would like to appeal to government to reconsider the tax rates on rural and community banks and reduce it to say 12.5%, so that the rural banks will have some level of relief and use the tax savings to do things for the community. They could be asked to use the savings to support education, health, security, and things like that. They can also ask the rural ARB Apex Bank to monitor what the tax savings have been utilized for.
Akumadan is a major tomato and other agricultural commodity production hub. Economic analysts believe the advent of the bank provides opportunity for financial inclusion for residents for agricultural expansion. Global Investment Bankers, which is behind the initiative, is optimistic the local economy will benefit from the bank's presence. Isaac Kwatin Bedu is president of the Global Investments and executive director of the new bank.
Microfinancing and serving the unbanked rural folks. So in our case, we also realize a gap where most of the banking or the bank public is lack of information regarding financial services, and that's where we're going to also look at and preparing some public educational training regarding banking and financial service products. Even borrowing, there are clients who, the fact that loan is made available, they want to borrow and without knowing how to manage the loans. And therefore we think that educating the client before the decision to take to borrow and what to use the money for and how to repay is very, very important, because a loan is taken for the money to work so that we'll be able to pay the loan. But we don't borrow money from a bank and consume it and spend it on maybe consumables. You borrow money to turn it around into your business. Therefore, we must emphasize that when we are training our clients. So we are coming up with different forms of training models we're going to give to our clients.
Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Deborah.
The Ghana Statistical Service has completed work on rebasing the Consumer Price Index and inflation figures. A process which ran for more than 6 months sees new additions onto the consumer basket to be used for the calculation of inflation figures. Ebenezer Sabuti has more in this report.
Rebasing of the country's economy is conducted every 5 years as a measure of reviewing the data on goods and services collected for the purposes of churning out inflation rates. The new review extended the number of markets used for the survey from 42 to 44, as well as adding about 200 additional items onto the measuring basket. The data, which is expected to be published on August 15, was collected between the period of January and July 2018. Esu Afram is the head of economics at the Ghana Statistical Service.
How much people go to the market and buy items? If you take, there are so many items on the market. The best thing for everybody like for us who go to the market, the best thing for everybody to have is that you go to the market, you buy an item, and maybe buy an item for say 1 cedi or 2 cedis, and for about 3 months or 6 months or even 1 year, you go to the market and get the price of the item at the same price. But when you go to the market and the prices keep on changing, that's what always becomes a problem. You see, so this CPI is a way that we measure and see how much the prices, the changes which are coming into the prices. And so that if you buy an item for 1 cedi last month and you go and see 1 cedi 20 pesos, how much is that? Because how much the price have changed helps everybody, whether the government or whether investors.
So doesn't mean you are doing for only CPI and inflation?
Yes, currently we are doing for CPI and inflation.
He also disclosed that the Ghana Statistical Service has been engaging some stakeholders, including the Bank of Ghana and the Ministry of Finance, to make available their inputs before the completed data could be published.
Because we want to make sure that whatever we are bringing out is as open, and we also have the inputs of our stakeholders. When we say stakeholders, it's like companies, customers. If you see how the companies take care of their customers, whatever you are doing, we need our stakeholders who are customers to know in advance and also know what is happening so that they can also adjust it. They will also adjust themselves and put all these in. When they are also doing anything, they can put it on this. Oh, we know that new numbers are coming from Ghana Statistical Service. So how are we also adjusting ourselves? If they don't know and it comes out on them, it's also not good. So we involve everybody, and we also incorporate suggestions and recommendations, everything to
what
so
are
that
some of the new entrants into this rebasing?
What are the
new items that have been added?
In fact, if you look at the new this new rebasing, the basket, the old one, the basket for the old CPI was 267.
It is expected that the methodology in measuring GDP, inflation and other economic figures will change after the entire process.
And that's all by way of business tonight on Joy News Prime. Many thanks for watching. For more business news, log onto myjoyonline.com/business. Have a great week.
Now, President Akufo-Addo is promising the Ashanti region its fair share of national development as he cuts sword for a massive road project in the region. He told the Asantehene the region will benefit from massive infrastructural development, especially in the area of road and health. The president, who is on a 4-day tour of the Ashanti region on Friday, cut sword for the facelift of the Greater Kumasi Town Roads project, which will see the construction and rehabilitation of over 475 kilometers of roads in the capital.
My government, through the Ministry of Roads and Highways, has begun work on the following critical projects. The Kumasi Drainage and Roads Extension Project, which involves the construction of the Lake Road into a 2x2 dual carriageway from the cocoa bottling plant to Dompoase Junction. Lining of the Sisa River for 2 kilometers to reduce the incidence of flooding. Construction of critical bridges and footbridges over the Sisa River. Secondly, rehabilitation of 100 kilometers of roads within Kumasi and Mampo. The rehabilitation of the Sunyani Road, popularly referred to as the Sofian Project, will also be completed. I urge the Ministry of Roads and Highways and its implementing agencies to ensure and proper supervision is given to all the works being undertaken and thereby guarantee value for money.
Roads Minister Kwesi Amoako-Atta, on his part, is unhappy at 3 important road projects initiated by the erstwhile Kufuor administration were neglected by the NDC government. He announced the NPP government will fix all Kumasi roads.
I want to inform all of you that the government of President Akufo-Addo is determined to fix all these roads. Out of about 2,000 kilometers of roads in the city, a sizable number found in the communities and suburbs, and we are committed to improving upon them to enhance the quality of life of the citizenry and make each place accessible. The projects packaged under the Kumasi Roads Facelift Program are evenly distributed to ensure equitable allocation of resources in the city.
Meanwhile, water is now a scarce commodity at Chamba in the northern region following the drying up of the dam in the area that serves as its water source. The problem has been further compounded by the breaking down of majority of boreholes in the area, which are more than 2 decades old. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo visited the area and has filed this report.
Chamba, a village near Bimbela, has a population of about 10,000 people. This dam is the water that residents here rely on for their daily chores. It's supposed to be filled to the brim, to the level of the shafts, but it's dry most of the times, and mud is all what is left. The drying up of the dam has left the residents with no water.
Okay,
so what she's saying is that they don't have any source of water. They know that there are some few boreholes, but some of them you go and you have to pay money, which she doesn't have money to go and pay. So she's compelled to come and fetch this one and go and manage with. She would have wished for a borehole so that they don't take this dirty water. She herself knows that the water is dirty, but that is the only source of water they have. So she's compelled to fetch that one. What she says is that it's actually far from her place, but this is the only source of water, and the water is not even good. But she has no other place to go and fetch water from. So that is why she's compelled to come here. And as we have come to see her fetching this water, is it not pitiful?
The residents here now have to rely on this almost muddy source of water to cook and bathe, although animals also drink from it.
Anytime we take it, we fall sick. And if you fetch this water even to drink and your eyes see, how do you yourself feel it? So we are suffering. We are suffering.
When you say you've been falling sick, what kind of sickness has it been causing you?
Yeah, stomach pains, and these many of us are running diarrhea and other things. We are appealing to government. We are on our knees. We are appealing. Feel pity for us and give us water. We are on our knees. We are suffering a lot.
The community has about 14 boreholes serving the about 10,000 people. But about 8 of them are broken down, and the rest are usually under pressure. The boreholes are more than 20 years old, and they break down frequently, even after repair. Assembly member for Chamba West electoral area, Biwati David Nyajedo, says the community needs more boreholes, and
now there are mixed reactions to suggestions that churches in Ghana must be taxed. Now, President Akufo-Addo's address to the Synod of the Global Evangelical Church of Ghana on Thursday appears to have triggered a debate about whether or not churches should be taxed. According to the president, the church's deviation from its original role of supporting the country's development and the flashy lifestyles of some pastors has become fodder for some people who believe they should be made to pay some tax.
Yes, the churches were seen as leading the drive for development. They built and ran schools and hospitals. They led the campaign for good sanitation. Cleanliness was next to godliness. They preached and practiced. But the difficult truth is that once you get into the wealth and prosperity sphere, you necessarily slip and concentrate on being outrageous. It is not surprising that there are calls for taxes to be imposed on church incomes. When you step out of the charity sphere, out of education, and out of healthcare, you're putting yourself in the line of the taxman. Both institutions, that is government and the church, are leading the people, and both hold out promises for a better tomorrow. We have a duty and responsibility to work together to improve the condition of the people.
While the Ghana Revenue Authority on its part says it is investigating all churches in the country with the view to taxing them based on their business dealings, the GRA goes further to add that it is ready to pay informants 25% of any penalties the church is charged. The Commissioner General, Emmanuel Kofinti, however, says government would stay off tithes and offerings.
GRA thrives on intelligence. It's part of our job. Financial intelligence guides us in the work that we do. And it's not everything that we do that we have to go out there and be making noise about them. But then those who demonstrate that they are having some posh houses and are having a pool of cars in their homes and they are profit something, We are trailing them, and we are after them. And a time will come when we will be able to say, look, we went after maybe an apostle, an angel, we went after an apostle, and we went after a prophet and the rest. And we had them. Okay. When we went to the Peace FM program, we explained the situation. That to the extent that a church gets itself involved in a business transaction or in business, the business is subject to tax. And when there are staff of the offices of a church, the church workers are like every other worker, any other place. They are subject to payee deduction and social security contribution. And a church, like any other organization, when it gives a construct job, a contracting job for a construction work, it is supposed to withhold tax and then remit to the GRA. When it comes to their tithes and then the offerings, those areas, we believe there are no-go areas for the GRA. And that one is understandable.
Now, out there on the streets, opinions are divided on the issue. We spoke to some members of the public. Listen.
When you go to church, the main purpose of going there is to go and praise God, to worship God. So I don't think it's necessary for churches to be taxed.
The churches are making big money, because Ghana, almost every house has a member who goes to church, and we pay offerings and we buy things, we buy oils, communion wines, honey, all these things for directions. Of course, they sell to us. And in Ghana here, selling, buying and selling goes with tax. And I think it will be very prudent if the government does that.
No, that shouldn't be. Because where people worship, and I know when they start on mosque, on churches, they will definitely come on mosques, which is not advisable. So because mosques or churches are for, let me say, that is God's houses.
Well, the Bible says that we should give unto Caesar what belongs to Caesar. So if and besides, we pay bills, and because we are using services, so if we should pay tax, I think it's plausible.
I think it's in the right direction, because you can see now churches are meant to support society, but they collect the tax and then use it for themselves, leaving the congregation in poverty. So I don't see anything wrong in taxing the churches.
So, to tax or not to tax, the debate rages on. And in the headlines, ministers of state and other government appointees tagging along President Akufo-Addo's Ashanti region tour made to join a coach following a directive against ministers using their own vehicles in the presidential convoy. And already some of the appointees are taking it in their stride. There are, however, security concerns. We had to speak to a security expert. Also, former presidents of 2 male-only university halls, KNUST authorities say they would begin to admit females. They stage a protest here in Accra to get the authorities to back down. In business, Association of Ghana Industries renews commitment to establishing its own bank to facilitate easy access to credit by businesses, especially SMEs.